guys, welcome back to my channel. So for today's video, I'm going to be showing you how I made these super cute and fairly easy little like mesh net hats. I think they would be really cute and fun to play around with for this summer, so I was really trying to make sure that I got this tutorial out in a timely manner for you guys. These hats are super cute, they're very beginner friendly, and they don't take that much time to make, so I wanted to go ahead and take a second to just do a quick little tutorial for you guys. Now for both of these hats, I used this type yarn. I think it's called crochet thread. I'll look it up and I'll like put it on the screen. So I'll let you know, one, what this was actually called, and two, what weight it is, you know, for your tutorial purposes. But this is what I used. I didn't even use half of one singular skein. Like, this project barely takes up any yarn, so I guess that's a good thing. I don't know, but I'm gonna show you guys how I did that. And when I'm actually doing the tutorial, I'm actually gonna use a yarn that has a slightly like higher weight, just because this is so like light and thin and like flimsy to work with that I think it'll be kind of hard for you guys to see like what stitches I'm going into. So to alleviate that problem, I'm gonna show it on a different yarn, but just know that this is the actual yarn or yarn type that you will be using. And as far as the different little like tchotchkes that you attach onto the bottom, like how you attach it and what type or way you go about it will obviously depend on what you use. So when I did this hat, these are, what do they call them? Some sort of, I don't know. I actually can't remember. I think they're called some type of like sea pearl or something like that. That's definitely not the name, but that's what it reminds me of. But there's some sort of pearl, I know that much. And this was, or I should say these were like the little chains on a old necklace I had back in like middle school, and I absolutely hated the necklace, but I kind of like the chain aspect of it and I didn't want to get rid of it, so I was like, well, what am I going to use it for? Who knows? But then like 15 years later, I decide that, you know, they'd make cute little things to go on my hat. So I'm not going to show you how to like attach these things on here because that wouldn't make sense. How you attach them depends on what it is that you're trying to put on there in the first place, but I will make sure that you have the article that you even need to attach these little phalanges on too. So let's go ahead and get straight into this tutorial. One last thing actually, so when you guys make your hats, because I'm actually really curious on how you guys go about making them and what type of little things you put on the bottom of your hats, I would love to see you guys share that with me. So if you make this hat, go ahead and tag my Instagram. I will take a look at them, I will like your posts, and I will admire your work, and I will leave you some feel-good comments under your post. So you're welcome in advance. Now let's get on to the tutorial. Alright, so what you're going to need to make this hat is your crochet thread. It's a weight 0 yarn, whatever that means. You're going to need a 4mm crochet hook, a pair of scissors, and a darning needle, and then whatever little accessories that you want to attach onto the bottom of your hat. So one thing I just want to point out as you're working with your crochet thread for this project is that you do want to keep a pretty loose tension. And so the reason I'm not doing the tutorial with this yarn is because, as you can see, it's kind of hard to see where your stitches are, just because of how it is. So please be mindful that even though I'm using a different yarn just so you can see how to do the stitches a bit better, you do want to keep your tension fairly loose as you are working with your crochet thread. Okay, so that's all. Just want to point that out. Alrighty, so to get started, first you're going to need to make a foundation, which is going to be a magic circle. So take your yarn and in 2 fingers, hold one side down, wrap it around your 2 fingers, make an X, flip it over, the other side should be 2 straight lines. I'm going to use my hands to hold that straight. Then what I'm going to do is take my hook, go under the first one, reach underneath and grab the second one, twist it up, and then pull through the yarn there. Sorry if that was not a great description, but I will make sure that I attach a tutorial of how to do a magic circle in the description. But nonetheless, once you have your foundation chain, you're going to chain 3. So 1, 2, 3. And now we are going to put 12 double crochets into our magic circle. So at the end of this, we should have 12 double crochets plus our chain 3, and this chain of 3 is not going to count as a stitch moving forward. Okay, so go ahead and put 12 double crochets, so yarn over, go into your circle, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2 loops, yarn over, pull through your remaining 2 loops. So go ahead and repeat that 11 more times now, and I'll meet you guys there. All right, so that was my last double crochet. I did go back and check to make sure that I had 12 double crochets plus this chain of 3 that we did initially. And now you're going to go ahead and pull that tail nice and tight to close off your round. And you're going to slip stitch into the top of the very first double crochet. So go ahead and go into there and pull your yarn through those 2 loops to end off your circle. For our next row, what we're going to do is put 2 double crochets into each of our chains from our previous row. So to get us started, you're going to start off with a chain of 3, and then in the same stitch that you just slip stitched into and then did your chain of 3, you're going to put 1 double crochet into that space. Now, first go round, our chain of 3 didn't count for anything, but the second go round, your chain 3 counts as a double crochet. So we have 2 double crochets into that first stitch now, and we have 11 more stitches in this row that we need to go ahead and put 2 double crochets into. So moving right over to the next stitch, I'm going to go ahead and put 2 double crochets in there. And then 2 double crochets into every other stitch in this row. I'll meet you once we get to the end of this row. Okay, so I just finished up this row, and you should be able to count 24 double crochets, including the chain 3 that we started off with. So it's really 23 double crochets plus your chain of 3 to start off this round. So go ahead, double check, make sure you have the correct number in your circle. So once you've made sure that you have 24 double crochets in this round, you're going to slip stitch in the top of this chain 3 here. So go ahead and reach in there and then pull through both of your loops there to close off this round. And then we're going to move into our next round. Now going into round 3, you're going to start off with a chain of 3. And yes, that chain 3 is going to count as our first double crochet. And our repeat for this round is going to be 1 double crochet and then an increase. So this first chain of 3 counts as our first double crochet. So in this very first stitch right after it, we're going to do an increase and an increase, just so you guys know, is 2 double crochets. So then you should have 2 double crochets into that second stitch. So now we have 3 stitches total so far, and we just ended off with an increase. So in the next stitch, we're going to do 1 double crochet. And then in the next stitch, we do another increase. And you just keep repeating this pattern until you get all the way around to the other end of your circle, which if you do this right, your last stitch should be an increase. So go ahead and make it around your circle, and I'll meet you guys at the end of this round. Okay, so I made it to the end of my round and my last stitch was an increase. So I'm going to go ahead and slip stitch into the top of this chain 3 here to end off this round. And then to start off the next round, I'm going to start with making another chain of 3. Now for this next round, our pattern is going to be 1 double crochet in the first 2 stitches and then an increase. So this chain 3 counts as our first double crochet. So into the very next stitch, we're going to do 1 double crochet. And then in the stitch following, we do an increase. So that's 2 double crochets. So one more time, in the next stitch, we do 1 double crochet. In the second stitch, we do 1 double crochet. And then in our third stitch, we do an increase. Okay, so that's going to be the repeat for this round. So go ahead and make your way all the way around the circle. When you get to your last stitch, it should be an increasing stitch. So you should end up with putting 2 double crochets into that very last stitch of this round. But go ahead and do so, and I will meet you guys at the end of this round. So I just finished this round, and you should be able to count 48 stitches in this round. So it's really 47 double crochets plus this chain of 3, but because that counts as a double crochet, we're going to say 48. But to end off this round, we're going to once again slip stitch into the top of this chain 3. Okay, and then that's the end of this round. So one more round. I'm starting off with a chain of 3. And now for this row, I'm going to do 3 single crochets and then an increase in the 4th stitch. So our chain 3 counts as our first double crochet. In the next stitch, we do 1 double crochet. So that's 2. In the next stitch, 1 double crochet. And then in the stitch after that, we do an increase. Okay, so go ahead and continue on with that repeat until you get to the end of your round, which once again, you should be ending off with your last stitch being an increase. And every single round that you do, you should notice that you're increasing each round by 12 stitches. So at the end of this round, you should have 60 stitches in your round. So go ahead and continue on with the pattern. I'll meet you at the end of this round. All right, now for our next round, we're going to start working up the mesh stitch. So go ahead and start off with a chain of 5 this time. Then what you're going to do is you're going to skip the very first stitch and you're going to double crochet into the following stitch. Then you're going to chain 2, skip the next stitch, double crochet into the stitch that follows. And that's going to be your repeat for this row. So you're just chaining 2 and then you're skipping every other stitch, putting in a double crochet in, the spaces in between. So one more time, chain 2, skip the next stitch, in the stitch that follows, put 1 double crochet. So keep repeating this until you get around to the other end of your circle, and I'll meet you guys there. All right, I've made it towards the end of this row and I just have to finish up this last stitch. So I have 3 stitches left. I'm gonna put my my double crochet in here. Then I'm gonna chain 2 and I'm going to slip stitch into the 3rd stitch or the 3rd chain in this chain 5. So find where that is. and slip stitch there to end off that round. Now going into our next round, we're going to do the exact same thing that we just did for the previous round. So start off with the chain of 5, and now you're going to yarn over and skip the chain 2 space here, and you're going to double crochet into the stitch that sits right above the previous row's double crochet. Then you're going to chain another 2, skip the chain 2 space, and double crochet in the stitch that sits right above the next double crochets, or the next row's double crochet. And we're once again just going to repeat this until we make our way back to the start of our circle. So keep doing that and I'll meet you guys there. Alright, I've made it to the end of this round, so now I just have to slip stitch into the third stitch of, or excuse me, the third chain of my chain 5, and that ends off that round. And you should start to see the edges of your work start to curve up a little bit. That is exactly what we want. And going into our next round, this will be a good time to just play around and like plop this thing on top of your head and see if it's wide enough for you. Otherwise, you're going to change up the chains that you do for the next round. So if it's wide enough, then you will just continue on with doing the same thing that we did for the last 2 rows until you get to your desired length of your hat. But if you feel like you need your hat to be a little bit wider, what you're going to do is you're going to still start off with your chain of 5 and just double crochet into that first stitch just to make life a little bit easier for you. But then for all of your other stitches, what you're going to do is instead of chaining 2 in between every stitch, you might want to chain 3 or chain 4, and then just let that be the repeat moving forward for the remainder of your hat. It'll just stretch it out a little bit and make it a little bit wider if that's what you need. So for example, going into the next stitch, if I wanted a bit wider, I could try a chain 3, and always remember, because you're using your crochet lace, you should be keeping your tension pretty loose. Okay, but so I'll chain 3 instead of chaining 2, and then same situation, putting a double crochet into the stitch that sits above the previous round's double crochet. We're always going to skip the chain spaces in between, but how many chains you put in between there, you know, might vary from person to person. So I'm going to actually go back and I'm going to keep it at 2 double crochet or 2 chains in between my double crochets, and now I'm just going to keep going around and around with this same pattern for my entire remainder of my hat until my hat is my desired length. So for me, it ended up being around 12 to 13 rows. So I'll meet you guys once I have those done. Alright, so I ended up doing 12 rounds. So from the very first round we did all the way down, you should be able to count 12. If you're specifically looking at how many mesh boxes, it's 7 of these mesh boxes. So that's what I did, and then after that you can go ahead and add on whatever little beads or charms that you want to the bottom of your hats. And when you use the actual yarn, this is what your hat should look like. You might need to like shape it a little bit, so you might have to like pull and tug to get it to like look right. But everyone's hats might come out a little bit different looking depending on how tight or loose your tension is. So you might need to play around with that a little bit until you find what works for you. But this is what the final product should kind of look like. And then based off of your preference, you know, you can attach different little things onto the bottom of your hat, depending on your own personal taste and style. And there you go. That's how I made these hats. I will say that, you know, they might look a little small when you're just looking at them, but they should stretch to fit around your head, especially if you were not using like a tight tension as you were making your hat. But that is it. I hope you guys were able to follow the tutorial well, and I hope that me using a different yarn didn't confuse you. I was just trying to make it as easy as possible for you guys to see the stitches. So let me know if you have any questions in the comments. I'll try to answer any questions you have. And I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Make sure to like it if you liked it, and subscribe if you haven't already. And I will see you guys soon with another video. Bye guys.